One cold morning, my mother awakens me and tells me that I must remain in bed until the coal she has ordered has been delivered. For the payment of the coal, she leaves a note and some money under the dresser or scarf. I go back to sleep, and I'm awakened by the ringing of the doorbell. I open the door, let in the coal man, give him the money and the note, and he brings in a few bushels of coal, then lingers, asking me if I'm cold. Yes, sir? I'm shivering, so he lights a fire. Then he sits and smokes. How much change do I owe you? Well, I don't know. Shame on you. Don't you know how to count? No, sir. Well, listen and repeat after me. He counts to 10, and I listen carefully. Then he asks me to count alone, and I do. Then he makes me memorize the words 20, 30, 40, and tells me to add 1, 2, 3, and so on. In about an hour's time, I've learned to count to 100. Once he's gone, I dance up and down in my night clothes, count it again and again to 100, afraid that if I don't keep repeating the numbers, that I'll forget them. When my mother returned from her job that night, I insist that she stand still and listen while I count to 100. She's dumbfounded. She teaches me to read, tells me stories. On Sundays, I read the newspapers, with my mother guiding me through and spelling out the words. Soon I'm asking far too many questions of everybody. We move in with my grandmother. To help support the household, she rents a room to a colored school teacher, Ella. One day I find Ella sitting alone upon the front porch reading. Ella, what's that you're reading? Oh, it's just a book. But what's it about? I don't think your grandmother would like it if I talk to you about novels. I don't care. You mustn't say things like that. But I want to know. Well, when you grow up, you'll read books and know what's in them. But I want to know now. All right, come here. Once upon a time, there lived an old man named Bluebeard. As she whispers to me the story of Bluebeard and his 7 wives, I cease to see the porch, the sunshine, her face, everything. She tells me how Bluebeard had duped and married his 7 wives, how he loved and slain them, how he'd hang them up in a closet by their hair. As she speaks, reality changes, and the look of things alters, and the world becomes peopled with magical presences. Enchanted and enthralled, I stop her constantly to ask for details. My imagination blazes. But just as she was about to finish, just when my interest was keenest and I'm lost in the world around me, Granny steps briskly onto the porch. Hey, you stop that, you evil gal. I want none of that devil stuff in my house. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Wilson, but he asked me. He's just a foolish child and you know it. But Granny, she didn't finish. You shut your mouth. You don't know what you're talking about. But I want to hear what happened. That's the devil's walk. But I like the story. You go burn in hell. No more story. Not to know the end of the story filled me with a sense of emptiness, loss. I hungered for the sharp, frightening, breathtaking, almost painful excitement that the story had given me. And I vowed that as soon as I was old enough, I would buy all the novels there were and read them to feed that thirst for violence that was in me, for plotting, for secrecy, for intrigue, for bloody murders. So profoundly responsive a chord had the tale struck in me that the threats of my mother and grandmother had no effect whatsoever. They read my insistence as foolishness, something that would quickly fade. They had no idea of what Ella's story had done to me. I mean, they could not have known that Ella's whispered story of deception and murder had been the first experience in my life that had elicited from me a total emotional response. No words of punishment could have possibly have made me doubt. I had tasted what to me was life, and I would have more of it someday. I realized that they could not understand the way I was feeling, so I kept quiet. But sometimes, when no one is looking, I steal into Ella's room and steal a book and take it to the back of the barn and try to read it. Usually, I could not decipher enough words to make the story have meaning. I burned to learn to read novels. And I tortured my mother into telling me the meaning of every strange word I saw. Not because the word itself had any value, but because it was the gateway to an enchanting and forbidden land. Anything seemed possible, likely, feasible, because I wanted everything to be possible. Since I had no power to make things happen outside of me, I made things happen within. And I kept asking my questions.